Good evening, friends. Uh, Welcome to the next activity from Pune Audit Club on behalf of the Institute of Internal Auditors. Today, we have a very learned personality with us, Mr. Sunil Bakshi, and he is going to talk on IS audit, what we should know. We means all auditors. I hope I am audible. If you have some problem in getting the voice right, you can put it on the chat section. By default, every participant will be kept on mute, and at the end of session, we will have a Q&A section where everybody can type his own question, and based on the time availability and priority ease of consolidating the questions, we can take up those questions. So let me just speak few words about Bakshi sir. Actually, we have worked together when he was part of Deloitte in the Enterprise Risk Services Department. But before that, he was part of State Bank of India IT. Uh, he was in IT with State Bank of India. Then he has, as mentioned, he has worked in Deloitte ERS. He was Chief Information Security Officer of National Stock Exchange and visiting faculty at NIBM, that is National Institute of Bank Management. And currently is a freelancer and working in the area of IT governance, risk management, IS audit, data privacy, information security. What I know, as he's not mentioned that, I guess in his CV, that he is one of the early founders of ISACA chapter in Pune. And to his credit, he has got more than 12 certifications, degrees, qualifications you can mention. You can see that on the screen. And with his 44 years of reach experience, I hope we all will get enlightened with his experience and the insights. Yeah, you are audible, and we all are connected.
Okay.
I just introduce you. Over to you, sir.
No, the reason I'm asking that question again is that my old headphone is giving problem and new headphone is creating noises. So I will go ahead without headphone now.
Yeah, it's quite clearly audible.
Okay, great. So
Yeah.
I think that should work fine. Nikhil said question and answers will be at the end, but in between, if you have any questions, you can type that in a chat. Because chat is always on and we can always hear. We'll be looking at the chat and in between I will answer in that whenever there is a logical way. Today we are going to talk about IS audit and what we should know. Because many times what I observed is that when I work with the financial auditors, internal auditor, even many times chartered accountants, the focus of those auditors is more often financial because that is the starting point. The audit is the oldest profession. The moment money came in, the audit also came in. And since then, we know the word audit. But when system started coming, then the system audit started getting some importance. And I think that is not very new one. It started way back in 1969. So since then, people are talking about the system audit, IS audit, and still many people, including IT people, they get confused what is this audit. The second problem which we face nowadays is that when we say audit, auditee gets scared because audit has become an what you can call it is an essential evil, and because of that, uh, everyone thinks that auditor has to be pampered. So generally, whenever we go as an auditor, auditor is pampered. He want to make happy. The reason they want to make him happy because they don't want to give funding. And reason or they don't want auditor to give funding because they look at the auditor as an essential evil because their personal performance is associated with the audit funding. That is an unfortunate part of the audit, and because of that, auditors somehow has got some kind of an aura, positive or negative, I don't know. Because whenever I go for auditing, I always got that auditor tries to pamper you. But then there are some organizations and there are some cultures where they don't pamper us. Okay, let us go ahead with my thought. Whenever I speak with auditors and others, a basic question I always ask people is what are the three basic qualities auditors should have? And those three qualities are, I always refer them with the Rudyard Kipling. The first quality was told to me by Rudyard Kipling. It's a very nice poem actually, very old poem. And then he is talking about that I keep six honest servicemen, and what I know they told me. And those are the what, when, why, how, when, where, who. So in other words, as an auditor, our main job is ask question. Never hesitate to ask question. Now you will say, why I'm saying this? The reason is that whenever it comes for IT, the IT people start talking in jargon. Yeah, please note, I am an IT person and I'm saying this. IT people start talking in jargon and we don't know what that jargon is. And sometimes we feel that if I ask him a question, what does this mean? He may think I am asking a silly question. No, actually, whether he is thinking or not, I don't know. I'm thinking that he may think. And that's why we hesitate to ask questions. The problem is that we don't get answer. I can share one old story. When if you have seen the banks and bank branches, you must have visited. Everyone visits banks. Now the notes in the branches, they don't have any storage. They are either thin client or they are desktop without hard disk or without any CD and floppy drive. The very reason is that banks don't want the employees to download data from the central server by mistake leak it. Intentionally they may not leak it, but if they download it and store it, there will be issues with the data and it might be leaked. So they don't want it any storage on that. Now, when I was reading the IT and we were asked for the codes from different vendors to provide us this desktops, because those days thin clients were not there, so desktops were provided. Our configuration was standard, the desktops with no hard disk, no CD drive, no floppy drive. When I was opening the technical codes, all vendors were sitting, we were opening one by one. Everyone has given a right configuration. The only difference that everyone has added one line below for USB free. And then USB in those days was a very new technology, so I was kind of confused. So I asked him, what is this USB, man? And then someone from the front row, oh, you don't know USB? As if you are heading in technical course and you don't know the technology. And I said, okay, can you explain me? And so he explained me what is USB. It is universal serial port, and you don't need any separate connectors, and you don't need copy and storage. You can do this and that. I said, copy and store, okay. So you are talking about some drives where I can connect it and copy the data? Yes. Okay, then take this code back. I don't want any USB on my machines. The very reason we are asking not to give storage, you are giving me a backdoor, right? Now, if I would have kept quiet because he's talking some technology which I don't know, we might have ended up in having the wrong machines over there, right? Second thing auditor has to do is communicate. The main thing auditor does is ask question and listen, and same thing communicate. Tell others what he wants or what he expects to do. Now, the key aspect of communication is listening. Whenever I ask this, what is the key aspect of communication? People say language, presentation, contents. All these things are fine, but main key aspect is a listening. The reason auditor has to listen carefully, the auditor has to observe also, but before that auditor has to listen because someone is going to explain you something and your mind is trying to create an image in the backend. For example, if I'm trying to explain you some object or describe you some object, I'm trying to find some analogy from my experience and try to form an image in the back of my mind. Let me do an experiment. I'm going to give you an information about one object in piece by piece, and you're going to identify what image you are getting it. Okay. So first is this is first information equipped with internal combustion engine. Any thought may not be, or someone will say, okay, looks like some vehicle. Fine. Then second piece of information, something like yellow or black or yellow and black. Then third piece of information, just check your image, okay? So what image now you have got? Something looks like an auto, huh? Three wheels, black and yellow, with an engine. So parking brake and foot brake, still an auto, okay? Now, is it still an auto? 3-speed forward and 3-speed reverse. Many autos don't have reverse also. And we're talking about 3-speed reverse gearbox. So what happened to my image? Image is gone. Now it is something else we are talking about. This object is not what I was thinking. Okay. Now what happened? You got the image? I think you got the image. Most of you got the image. Now look at the situation here. I was talking about technology and we are searching for image. And I talked about functionality and suddenly you know what I'm talking about. IT is like that. Whenever you go and talk about IT, don't go into the technology or technical detail. Just tell me what this IT is going to do for me or for you or for the organization. Because that is what is important. If I know functionality, if I know what functionality is required to be done, it is not a different functionality. Even in manual systems, we are doing the business, right? So those same functionality, it is now automated using technology. Only thing that because of that certain steps have been small or reduced, and then your process is more compact and efficient, and that's all. But if somebody is talking about technology, ask him to talk about functionality. Tell me what it is going to do for me. Let me tell you one more story. There's a small country called Burundi. And then there is one bank, and I was auditing that bank. And as usual, like auditors are pampered, I was also getting pampered. So the whole managing committee took us for the dinner, and the MD was sitting next to me, and he was suddenly asked me, "Can you help me?" And I said, "What is it you want?" "I'm just an auditor." He said, "No, no, my CIO want to purchase this Oracle database. So should I buy it?" I said, how can I tell you? Because it is whether to buy it or not, it is your decision. I'm just an auditor. No, no, sir, I don't understand technology. So I asked him, sir, do you understand business? Yes. And suppose CIO asks you to buy an Mercedes, will you buy it? Oh, no, I will ask him how it is useful for bank. I said, sir, ask the same question, no different. It is not different. It is one more a facilitation, one more technology, and it is ultimately the function of business which is getting automated, right? So listen carefully. You will get a lot of information very easily. And now third rule. Suppose I want to reach on the summit. What resources I will need? From this side I want to go there. What are the resources I need? Now, whenever I ask this question, I get a lot of answers. Somebody say helicopter, somebody say boat, somebody say with mountaineering gear we need, and maybe we need tent and other things. Now, what is happening here is I'm looking at a problem, I'm trying to solve the problem, but I'm not trying to position the problem. If I try to position the problem, I will find that I don't really need all these things. There is a good road, and I just need one vehicle to take out. Right? So always try to relate the problem with the organization. Many times we get a very simple and straightforward answer. And this I observed during my whole audit career, that whenever I go for audit, people try to complicate the things unnecessarily. We don't have to complicate. They are very simple, focused. Look at the business objective and look at the technology. You get your most of your answers very straightforward, right? Now, as I said, let us look at the what is the role of auditor. Now, many times auditors look at as a detective who is there. Yes, of course, auditor has to do sometimes a detective work to find out or investigate something. But primarily, auditor's role is as a consultant. Audit per se, I always tell other guys, what is audit? Audit is nothing but a risk monitoring. Organization has got certain risks. They have identified those risks. They have defined certain control to mitigate those risks. And auditor is going to ensure that these controls are effective. In other words, auditor is monitoring the risk. So if something is not right, auditor's role is to tell them, okay, this is not right, let us try to put it correct. And that is where particularly IS auditor has to be a consultant rather than the, of course, there is a forensic auditor and we are not talking about forensic audits. Forensic auditor has to investigate, but primarily you have to consult. You have to help because organizations are looking at you as an assurance professional rather than an auditors. Now, let us look at the role of IT in the business because that is the main problem. Many times people say, okay, it is very IT based and we don't know technology. We don't need to know technology. We need to know business. If I am a business expert, I should know my business. That's all. Technology, a technical person will look into it. Let me tell you one thing. IT person, one person cannot master entire gamut of IT. Even if somebody says I'm an IT expert, he is expert in some area of IT, not the all areas of IT. So whenever it comes to me, I say I'm not expert in network. Yes, I understand network, but I'm not expert in network. So when I joined the NSC as a CISO, now I don't know how this preferred me, and then when I was going to join them, I said, boss, your organization is completely network dependent, and I'm not a network person. And then the MD says, okay, I got 40 network engineers. So you don't worry about those network part of it. You look into the security aspect of it. That is exactly what we have to do. We are the auditors. If I'm doing a business function audit, if I'm doing a financial audit, let me understand from where my data is flowing, right? So there is a business function. Now business existed even when IT was not there. What happened is that for every business function, there is a process and we have used the IT to automate those processes. Now, this automation sometimes has got to an extent that we have eliminated there is no differentiating line between business function, business process, and IT process. They are almost confused, merged, and they have come together. They are fused. But still, when as an auditor, I should be able to see all these three layers. And then when I do an audit, I start from the business function, I understand the processes, and then I will see where the IT, what function IT is doing, and whether that is doing as expected by the business or not. So IS audit is not very complicated thing as such. Okay. Yeah, there are certain complicated things which comes in line, but let us look at it subsequently. Okay. Now, let us understand another thing. Why organization use IT? So IT has got multiple attributes associated with that. And primary attributes are efficiency and effectiveness. Why people use IT? Because IT can perform lot of repetitive work with utmost speed and very fast. Right? So efficiency and because of that effectiveness. These are the two important attributes why people look for IT. Now, when I'm looking for efficiency, effectiveness, I also want a reliability. Okay, it is efficient, but then computer can perform data processing very fast. Computer can commit the same mistake very fast. And that is the reason not only effective, I also want a reliable IT systems. Then, of course, you cannot ignore compliance, because whenever I'm looking at the IT, even whatever compliance I have to do, whether it is legal or regulatory or contractual or even internal, all these compliances I have to consider. And again, as an auditor, I do a compliance audit also. So we know that compliance is important. And that is the reason IT also should have a compliance associated, or rather say my organizational compliance should be embedded into the business IT systems. And then of course security. Now when security, they talk about availability, integrity, confidentiality. Now, integrity here, I'm talking about accuracy of data and completeness of data, or in other words, they call it quality of data. Naturally, availability, and authorized user should be able to access the system when it required. That is the availability. And then there should be confidentiality. So if I'm doing some transactions which I don't want anybody else to know, then it should not be visible to anybody else unless he is authorized to. So these attributes are implemented in IT, and now I'm looking from those attributes, because whenever I'm doing an audit, I also want to understand the underlying requirement or the objective why organization adopted this IT solution. So which of these seven principles and how those seven attributes have been embedded in this new system? Now, for which I don't need any technical knowledge. I need to know the business knowledge and process knowledge, which generally we have, right? So let us understand this and then look into the technology. Technology comes later on. Yes, we need to understand technology to some extent, but whenever you are doing audit, it is not necessary that you should know complete technology, right? Let me tell you one more thing. I was auditing this organization, and this is IT consulting company. They are pioneers in implementing SAP in all over India. Most of the implementation of SAP in India was done by this company. I was auditing their IT system, and in that they had implemented SAP for the payroll and accounting. So naturally the financial auditor told me, "Can you help me in auditing SAP?" I said, "Okay, let me find out." So I got an expert in SAP. I fixed the time appointment of a kickoff meeting with the CIO and said, "Okay, we'll be coming for auditing to you tomorrow at 10 o'clock." So when at 10 o'clock, when I reach at the meeting place, I got a call from a SAP expert that he met with some small accident. He cannot come today, so he will say he will come tomorrow. Now, kickoff meeting is already scheduled. I'm already at the location. CIO and me were waiting, and then CIO asked me, "What happened?" I said, "My SAP expert is coming tomorrow." Then he looked at me, "Do you know SAP?" I said, "No, I don't know SAP." "So how are you going to audit my SAP?" I said, "Okay, I don't know SAP, but I know audit. So don't worry, I will do the system audit, and my expert will come tomorrow. He join me tomorrow, and we'll do a remaining part of it." And on that day, when I talked with their SAP administrator, I just went on asking him questions. He gave me answers and showed me some screen. From that, I gave him some high level 7 or 8 findings where the attributes, efficiency, effectiveness, and integrity attributes were not meeting. So next day when I went back with the expert, the CIO came across, "Oh, how was your day one?" I said, "Okay, these are 7 or 8 findings I got for you. You look into it." And he was kind of, "No, it cannot be, because this is no, it doesn't fit into my best practice." I said, "Okay, go and check." And then he said, "Okay, you may not know SAP, but you know audit." That's exactly what we want to do. We may not know the complete technology, not necessary, but we should understand business and we should understand control. Again, as I said, auditors are assurance professional. Means what? Area, people are waiting. Then again, there is a city wall, beyond city wall. So if enemy attacks, he has to fight 3 or 4 times by the time he reaches the king. The same mechanism here, the king wants an assurance. Am I safe? And that's the job of auditor, to provide, yes, you are safe, don't worry, we are reasonably controlled. And that's exactly what we are doing in giving assurance. That is the role of auditors. Now, when we talk about audit, there are multiple types of audit. Nowadays, mostly people are going for the integrated audit where I don't have to face multiple audits. So financial audit, it is statutory because it has to be done. So it is important. To support a financial audit, we are doing internal audit also. But then there are some management audit, there are operational audit, there are forensic audit, there are administrative audits. So many different audits are there. So how many audits the auditee is going to face? So best way is have an integrated approach so that in one audit, so you are doing a financial audit because financial system are hosted on technology. I want an IS auditor also to join me. So financial auditor and IS auditor and supported by the process auditor. If all these three things go together, all the audits can happen at one go. And auditee will be happy. We are also happy. And because we are working together, we understand each other better. So we don't get feared about the system audit. What is system audit? I don't know system. Doesn't matter. We should know what is it. If you look at the standards, IS audit standard published by ISACA, they are talking about the chartered and professional prudence and organizational independence. All these basic principles of audits are always there, but they are giving some additional things over here which are associated with the IS audit. One is a risk assessment and risk management. So not only audit risk, but also the organizational risk, because I want to understand the organization, what are the risks, what are the concerns of the organization, what is the management's focus. Based on that, my audit should have a more deep dive, or whether it should be just okay, I'm fine with the work. Second issue comes with the because everybody is not expert in IT, so they are giving one standard for using work of other experts. So if I don't know something, if I'm not expert in SAP, I'll get some SAP expert with me for conducting audit. So I'm using somebody else's knowledge for doing my audit because I know audit, he knows SAP. So we are creating a synergy together to do that. And for that, they're trying to give you a standard. Okay, if you are engaging an expert, that expert also should be independent like you. And that expert should have an approval from the management who has given you the audit charter or engagement letter, right? So these are the standards. Again, they are not different. IIS standards and ISACA standards are not very different. They are same thing. Only thing they are here, they are giving more focus or emphasis on where the system audit issues will be more reflective. Audit program is again how you are going to do an audit. But because there are a lot of different technologies, and I want to understand each how I'm going to do audit for each technology. No, technology obsolescence, they say every 6 to 8 months there is a new technology coming in. So every time new technology comes in, either I have to learn it or I have to need to know how I'm going to do that audit. And that is where the experts who are working on such systems, they keep on coming out with the audit program, how to do audit of IoT, how to do audit of digital currency, how to do audit of integrated systems, how to do audit of computer control systems or ICS. So, or even how to do audit of mobile phone and mobile apps. So every day we keep on coming across some challenges, and some expert comes and writes the audit program. Those are the step-by-step help for us how to conduct the audit. Right. So let us understand what is the auditor's perspective, what are the confidentiality integrity issues, what is the quality effectiveness issues, what are the compliance reliability issues, what is the service capacity issues. So for example, IoT, they talk about IoT is coming in a big way, everything fine. I said, what is it? It is Internet of Things. In other words, all your devices will be connected on the internet. So your feeds can send a spam mail, or your TV can spread a virus. Is it possible? Why it is not? Of course it is possible. I think most of us have got smart TV at home and you're watching our Netflix and Hotstar and Amazon Prime and YouTube and everything is available on TV. In other words, your TV has got its own IP. So hacker gets an IP, he tries to access, he finds out, okay, it is a TV. Let me explore this TV and try to use it to send the spam mails. So it's not impossible. These things are happening. But because this has happened because those inanimate devices have been connected on the internet. And there is no control for that. Even though we call them smart, they are not actually smart. It is smartness is with us. We are smart and we are making them to work as a smart, right? And because of that, those people, those devices are likely to generate spam. Not only generate spam, those devices can be used to launch an attack for denial of service. But then does it mean we should not use IoTs? It is not like that because IoT, if I can do it properly, if I can control it properly, then naturally what will happen is nothing of such things can happen. Of course, 100% security is impossible. Reasonable security is what we are looking at. And that's exactly what we are looking at. And that's what we are asking them the question, right? Then procedures, whenever we are doing an audit, we need to understand what are the procedures. So we are understanding business procedures. We are trying to understand the controls. We are trying to understand what the risk, which risk that control is mitigating. And then we'll try to look into that control to understand how that control works. Is it really mitigating the risk? Because many times what happens, I know certain control has to be in place. For example, we know access control and user ID and password, and we also know that users should not share their password to anybody. Where we have been aware of the whole thing because everybody uses IT. Now, when I was auditing this one organization, actually it was not an exact audit. Some auditor has already given them some 300 odd findings and they were at loss how to close it. So I was kind of a consultant to tell them how to put in a process in place. The issue was that they had this very old legacy ERP system. And it was so old that a user cannot change his password. He has to come to system administrator and then system administrator will open a screen and then user will change the password. Fine. If system administrator and user are working at the same location, wonderful. But then no organization today works at one location. They have got multiple locations. So the people who are working at different location, they will give a call to system administrator and tell him, okay, please change my password from old password is this, new password is this. So they have to share it on phone. And the auditor definitely had pointed out this is not acceptable. This doesn't fit into any standard, it doesn't fit into any control, and there is a very high risk. The only solution was to change the ERP system, which is practically impossible at a short notice. So they had some plan prepared, which says that within next 3 years we'll change to the new ERP system. But till then, what? I suggested them one simple control. Why not you ask system administrator to sign an NDA after every 6 months that I am aware of people password and I assure that it will not be misused. Just a simple NDA which creates an awareness with the system administrator that this what I'm doing is a possible security threat or vulnerability and I should be careful. I think that is what is important whenever we are looking at the control. It is not that control should be in a particular standard. Every organization may implement same control in different way, right? There is something called data leak prevention or DLP tool. Many organizations have gone for DLP, right? And when I joined as a CISO, we also said we need a DLP, but implementing DLP is not an 1 month or 2 months job. It is almost 3.5 years project. In between, one system audit was due and the auditor came and he said, you are at high risk because you have not implemented DLP. And then I had a really hard time to explain him that, yes, I have not implemented DLP, but I know what is risk, and to mitigate those risks, I got some additional small controls in place, like users cannot send email outside. Only identified users can send email outside. Only authorized among those who can send mail outside are authorized to send attachment outside. So I'm controlling the data over there, and I'm also controlling data which is coming in. Then I got an outgoing and incoming data monitoring mechanism. But that is a log-based monitoring mechanism, not like a preventive control like DLP. So I may not be mitigating the risk at the expected level as DLP, but then I'm mitigating to some extent, which is reasonable at this level. Another example is that when I was auditing one bank, the Reserve Bank issued guidelines or compliance notification that all banks must have their captive SOC. And the small bank said, sir, we cannot afford SOC. The cost of security operations center implementation and operation is much beyond our capacity to spend. So naturally, if I cannot spend it, I have to have a different control. So I suggested them, you don't have to have captive SOC. Even the RBI says you can write them to that. It is not affordable for us, and we are going for the outsource model where the vendor is going to provide this as a service. So ultimately, RBI also has to accept that. They are not modified the notification, but they accepted this exception, right? So we need to understand those controls and the mechanism by which how those controls are mitigating risk, and then we'll decide how I want to test those controls. Right? Same thing what we do in financial audit, same thing we are doing. We are doing this testing of control. And this testing goes in a 3 steps. Okay. Now let us understand what is control objective and control activity. Now, as I said, control is implemented to mitigate some risk or other. So I have got a risk, possible unauthorized access to the confidential data. So I want to mitigate that risk. That means I need to control it, for which I define my objective, prevent, detect or correct unauthorized access instances. That means I need controls. Now that becomes my control objective. So when I negate a risk, I get a control objective. And to implement that control objective, I need some procedure to be implemented. Right? So the first procedure is I define policy, which says that how the control will be worked. Then I define a process for requesting the control, approving of control, granting of control, modifying the access level or authorization, revoking of control, and review of control. So there are multiple control related activities or access related activities. All these activities together are meeting my control objective of what is that control objective? Prevent, detect, and correct unauthorized access. Right. So in other words, if I'm auditing this particular control objective, I will look at all these control activities one by one and see if there are any findings. Are they reasonably meeting the expectations? And if yes, then all control activities, the sum total, I will say, okay, your control objective is achieved to some extent. As long as that extent is beyond 80%, it is reasonable, or maybe 90% may be reasonable, right? But at 50%, I have to give us findings, right? So that is understanding the risk controls and controller activities. Now, some organization you will always find there is a policy, and each policy there are exceptions. Now, whenever we talk about exceptions, what is exception? Exception elevates risk because I have defined a control to mitigate a risk to an acceptable level. But this exception, because of this exception, at some location, some system, some place, I'm not able to implement that control because I'm giving a relaxation. That means the risk at that particular place is higher than expected. So I need to understand the exceptions. So as an auditor, I generally look at the what are the exceptions, what is the process for exception approval, and what is the mechanism to review those exceptions. Exception cannot be permanent. It has to be reviewed periodically and then closed someday. Why exceptions come into the systems, particularly IS audits? This exception comes because we have defined a policy. Because there is some threat, to overcome that threat, we have defined a policy. However, we don't have a technology to support that policy. So by the time the technology is made available and implemented, we need some other control which might be manual. If I want to take an analogy, we have gotten a threat outside, that's why we are sitting at home. And then there is no control, there is no vaccine for that. And that is the reason we are trying to put ourselves at a safe distance, we are trying to control ourselves. Right? What is the best mechanism? Take a vaccine and move freely. That is what the economy needs, that is what our job needs, that is what our profession needs. But currently, control is not there, so we are living with an exception. And that exception, we are trying to control the threat by sitting at home. Right? That is the way of it. And then some people are still going out because there are exceptions. They have to provide certain services. So those exceptions are raising the risk level. Okay? Threat exists. Threat is there. So let us understand these exceptions. So whenever I go for audit, I will first look at the exceptions. I will understand whether management understand that there are exceptions and because of that the risk levels are elevated. So if not, then I have to give them as in finding, right? Then in system audit, again, as I said, there are compliance testing and substantive testing. So I know the risk, I identified control activity. Now I have to design that control in such a way that it will mitigate the risk at acceptable level. So that design of control should be meeting the risk. That is the first thing I will check. Okay, you have got a control, but is it actually mitigating some risk or not? So that is a design. And then you have excellent design of control, but how you are implemented. So first thing I check is the compliance. That is whether the design of control is actually mitigating risk at the expected level and whether that particular control has been implemented as designed. That is a compliance test. And then I do a substantive test. Okay, I found that design is okay. I found that implementation is fine. Is it ongoingly effective? That is the substantive test. For example, again, password policy. Most organizations do have a password policy. Your password should be complex and should be changed periodically. There are reasons why all these restrictions are put in for the passwords. Now I want to check how your password policy is and how you are implemented it. So most of the systems nowadays allow you to define password policy and or automate password policy. So whenever I go for audit, I will say, okay, show me your password policy, how it is implemented. So administrator will open some screen and he will show me, okay, this is how password policy is defined. So it meets all the attributes or parameters of the policy as designed. So password is complex and everything is fine. So design is okay. Implementation is fine. Now, is it ongoingly effective? I have to ask him, okay, who can change this parameter? Because somebody has set it, that means somebody can change it. So administrator can change it. When was it last changed? Can you prove it? So generally there will be system logs available when he has accessed those parameters, and I need to check those logs and make sure that it is not done just before the audit. I have seen that many people implement policy. Okay, tomorrow auditor is coming, so change the policy today. When auditor goes back, change the policy again back. Make it comfortable. Most interesting is that When I was auditing one organization, where I reached the audit around 10:30. At 11 o'clock, there was an announcement that there will be evacuation drill at 4 p.m. So everybody heard it, and there was a hooter that to give a warning that there is an evacuation drill. The moment hooter sound, I just tried to close my laptop, and the coordinator who was working with me, he said, "No, no, sir, we don't have to go out." So I had to tell him, man, if you are saying so, at least don't say it to the auditor. Because then I have to give the finding. So naturally, I asked him whether senior management also joins the evacuation drill, and he said no. And then I know what findings to be given. So when I'm looking at the compliance testing and substantive testing, I want to make sure ongoing effectiveness, and this ongoing effectiveness will be there if only the senior management is going to participate and following those controls. If those senior management is an exception for these controls, then there are multiple exceptions will crop up subsequently. Because many organizations has a culture that once you make an exception, exception becomes a precedence, and precedence becomes rule. Then another part is a work paper. Now in system audit, I need to maintain a work paper very rigorously, and those work paper consist of plan and programs and activities, but I also need to maintain what kind of controls I tested, or how I performed that test, and what evidence I collected. I have to maintain all these things in a work paper, because somebody may audit the auditor. So auditor also audited. So we need to maintain those work paper, and then I also need those work paper, because when I'm finalizing the report, I need to review what I have done and whether I have done it correctly. Because many times it happens in system audit that you may miss out to test something, or you may have to rework on some controls, or we may assume something. So sometimes, many times it happens. I will discuss some very interesting cases as we go ahead in the end. Okay. So we have to maintain the audit work papers with all the details written on that. Then using the experts for the whenever you are doing, for example, when I go for system audit and auditee expects me to do vulnerability analysis and penetration testing, which is not my expertise. So I ask some technical expert to join me, and he will come and do an VAPT. Or if it is an SAP audit, I ask my SAP expert to come with me. If it is a mobile system audit, I take a mobile expert with me. Because ultimately what happens, one cannot be master in everything. So you need a technical expert to join you, and you are to using his work. So what is important here is that he should be equally professionally liable with us. Anyway, accountability is still with us as an auditor, but he is going to help you out, and you have to supervise him. Okay. Then we talk about the system audit. There are multiple scopes. Many times what happens, you find scoping is a very tricky part. Particularly those regulated organization, they do a system audit every year, because regulator had told them. So regulator had specified, okay, this is the scope. Ideally, you should do audit for this particular scope. So they will just copy paste that scope and send it to you. Whether they actually have implemented those controls or not, whether they actually have those systems or not, they don't care. They just copy paste it and send it. So once I received one such scope, which was about 8 or 9 page long. So finally I had to call auditee and ask him one by one, okay, you want this to be included, you want this to be tested, you want this to be tested. And finally it come out to be that whatever he included, about 330 statements, I need to carry out only 32 statements. So understand scope, and that is where be focused on the scope. If it is some touching area, for example, I'm doing a data center audit. So data center is the core. where it is a brain of my IT system. Everything of IT system is in the data center. All my servers and application and everything is over there. So when I'm auditing data center, should I go into the application audit or not? So it is a thin line which we need to understand. When I'm doing data center audit, should I do physical security audit? To some extent, I have to do it because physical access to data center is more closely guarded. So I need to do an audit. Again, very funny thing is once I found when I went for auditing, I said, okay, they have got an excellent control in data center, only authorized persons with two-factor authentication for entry as well as exit. And then I said, how many people have got access to data center? And they gave me a list of 150. How many administrators are there? About 4 or 5. So at the most 10 people should have access to data center. They have got a list of 150, out of which 30 were top management who never visit data center, and last 60 were the cleaning staff, which is a contracted. Because they have to clean, they have to give in data center. So they basically missed out the basic objective of why this much strong physical security is implemented at data center. So all these are the things we need to look into it. So when I'm doing a data center audit, I may not look into the card system audit or treasury system audit or access control audit, or maybe I may not do a network audit also. But yes, I need to look at the some controls in network because they are terminated at data center. So it is very tricky for us to understand the scope and finalize what exactly which controls I'm going to test, right? So that is one thing, understand scope in system audit. That is most important. Second thing, in system audit, you will find there are two types of audits. One is a compliance audit and second is an assurance audit. So internal audit, as I said, is as we all know, it is an assurance audit. It is not an compliance audit. But many times assurance auditor, if work on compliance way, compliance means either you are compliant or non-compliant. There are only two states. ISO auditors give two more states, that is observation and need for improvements. But ideally they have got only two states. Either you are complying or you are not complying. But assurance auditor doesn't go in that way. Assurance auditor is, okay, this is a compliance requirement. You are complying to some extent and you are not complying to some other extent. So just where you are not complying, focus on that. So your assurance is good. So I can say you are 80% compliant, 20% you are not compliant. So in this area, you can the assurance auditor points out this is the area where management need to have a strong focus to make sure that controls are properly implemented. Whereas in compliance audit, it is you are whether you are complying or you are not complying. Only two states. Okay, so charter and scope, let us understand. The scope may or may not be part of charter. But nowadays, mostly engagement letter or charter come as an with a scope. So let us understand what charter is. Charter basically gives authority, responsibility, and accountability for the audit. So let us understand that first, and then look at the scope. Okay. So many times what happens that you get a charter, in internal audit generally get a charter, is a generic, and then for each audit you get a different scope. And that is the reason I need a charter separate and engagement letter separate. Then risk management, whenever you are doing and going for audit, understand what are the at least high level risk, and then ask them, are they doing any risk management? If yes, then only you look into the areas. If not, understand high level risk and see, okay, for example, when in NSC, my engagement started as an auditor first. So I was there for audit, and when I got that okay, I have to audit NSC, I knew few things in advance. That these people are very sensitive business operations, so their risk has to be high, and for which they need a very strong control. So with that understanding, when you go over there, you know what level of work you have to do. Because the risk is understood by you first. Now, first question I ask them, do they understand risk and what they are doing for mitigating risk? and then we start the audit. Okay, so risk is a fundamental. We need to understand risk. That is the first thing. Second thing, there is a risk of audit, risk associated with audit, and we may face those things, that there is a deficiency and we may miss it out, detection risk or audit risk. Or if we are doing a sampling mechanism, we may not have an accurate representation of population when we are sampling the data. So those risks we need to understand, and we have to make sure that we are doing it right. Planning, again, audit plan. Dwight Eisenhower says, and that is absolutely correct, plans are useless, planning is essential. Because that planning is going to tell you whether you are doing right or not. So do planning, but be prepared that if there might be sudden change, there might be sudden problem, and your plan will go haywire. So have a contingency ready, right? So planning is essential. Plans are useless. Keep that in mind, but keep on doing planning. Without planning, you cannot do a successful audit project. Okay, audit is a project. Then testing, of course, as I said, there are three substantive testing and compliance testing. If substantive testing fails, I don't have to go for compliance testing. If the control design and implementation is not proper, then there cannot be ongoing effectiveness. So in a way, it is good for system auditor because, okay, your design is not proper, or if your design is good but you are not implemented properly, I give you finding and come out. I don't have to go ahead and keep on testing ahead, right? If it is automated control, another advantage for the IS auditor, automated control, you don't have to do a lot of substantive testing. Only once implemented, generally it is automated. I just have to make sure that that implementation is appropriate and nobody can modify or change the configuration. Once that is done, my part is done. So testing becomes easier. But in some cases, because your systems are very complex, testing becomes very challenging also. And for which way it is better to have an expert. See, for example, firewall. Every organization have implemented firewalls, not one, not two. There are multiple firewalls in one establishment, one setup, or one infrastructure. Each firewall has to be configured depending on where it is located and how it is communicating the data. So for which, as an auditor, I need to understand at a high level, and then I will look at each firewall configuration. Now, if an organization has got about 50 firewall, I'm not going to check 50 firewall configuration. I'm going to focus on a core firewall. For example, whenever I go for banking audit, I look at the firewall which is protecting the CBS system, because that is the strong firewall which is configured only to communicate with channel servers, and that's all. No other communication is allowed. I just check only that firewall because that is a high risk. I may not check the packet filter firewall at a perimeter, but I may check an application or content filter firewall in DMZ. And if I don't know how to do it, I will take an expert with me and ask him to review and check it. Moreover, again, checking firewall is not very difficult, because ultimately what it does, it allows some services from one side to another side and another side to one side, the first side. So I just want to make sure that appropriate services are allowed and other services are disabled. It's not very difficult, but then for which we need to understand the concept of each type of service, associated risk and vulnerabilities. And then once you do collect all the testing and collect evidences, now comes a challenge, because I need to analyze that evidence and give a finding. And while giving funding, there will be very interesting issues and things comes in. So generally what we do, we create a finding, create a draft report, we give it to the management, and then we discuss with them. The reason is that because sometimes we may miss out some control testing, sometimes we may miss out complete control itself. and we may presume something, or we may there might be a miscommunication. What auditee is trying to tell and what auditor is trying to listen, there is a gap. And because of that gap, sometimes we may come across a situation where either I have to do a rework, or I might be fine also. Okay. So that is something which we need to do very carefully, right? And report, okay, you are giving a report. Generally, report is there is a finding, there is impact, what kind of risk because of this particular finding, which control is missing because of which risk is elevated, whether it is a high risk or low risk. That is one thing. And the second thing is, okay, what is the possible recommendations? Because any auditee is expecting, okay, you're giving me finding, give me solution. Auditor, as an auditor, I cannot prescribe anything, but I can generally provide a direction. So the recommendations are very high level, not very prescriptive. We don't have to give prescriptive recommendations. But many times what happens that we don't do risk assessment, we take a checklist and we follow the checklist. Now in the checklist job, we forget to link those check controls with the risk. And because of that, I try to give only findings. Whether that finding is actually worthwhile or reporting while or not, that is a different story. So for example, I went to audit this organization, and then I was meeting CIO, first kickoff meeting, and he was giving me information what how many plants he has got, how many people are working, and what systems they have got, which applications they are working. He said, okay, we are using SAP for our integration of the IT systems. I said, okay, excellent. How many users are there? He said about 2000 plus users are using SAP. Okay, how many licenses you have got? Oh, 600 something. You mean people are sharing user ID and password? Yes, they are sharing. Now that is something which, as an auditor, I know that it is not expected that people should not share user ID password, because then I cannot fix the accountability of action. And he was bluntly telling me that 600 license and people are sharing. And he saw the question mark. He said, I know what you are trying to ask me. You will find out any transaction and tell me, ask me who has done it, and I will tell you the right person. And he cannot say no. He cannot repudiate it. I said, okay, what you have done? He said, okay, what I have done is I have maintained the shift schedule. People who are working in a shift, they are using the same user ID and password or same license. Because if I take a license for each user, I have to purchase 2000 licenses from SAP. I'm saving my money. I'm using only 600 licenses, and SAP is aware what I'm doing. So shift schedule is integrated so that I know who is working on which shift and what user ID that person is using when. So any transaction happening, he knows that he is accountable. So he has to update his shift schedule on his own. So all these automated interfaces, because of which I don't have finding over there. Many times earlier auditor is given finding that there are 2000 users and only 600 licenses. I said I don't have finding because I'm not the compliance auditor to check your licenses. SAP and you have a contract. Why should I worry into your contract? That is SAP job. If you are not meeting the contract terms, it is not auditor job, right? So given finding, given impact, also have right sample size. This is otherwise this is a typical problem. Second thing, whenever auditor, many times it happens. So I always remember this Abraham Lincoln, what he says. It is better to remain silent and be thought as a fool than to speak out and remove all doubts. So there is no need to prove if you don't know. And other words, second approach, if you don't know, say it. I don't know, explain me. That is the simple. Okay. Unless, okay, there is a possibility of mistake in system audit. We may miss out something. There is nothing wrong. You can always go back and do a rework and come back. Right? But don't forget to take response from the management because they know it better. You have to just tell them that this is what you want. Right? and why you are looking into it, the audits. Okay, what should be the audit report, IS audit report? That is the question many times people ask me, and it is a question all IS auditor in the beginning get haunted. Ideally, audit report can have anything what depending on what you want to say. But basically, you have to give them an assurance to the management that this is what we studied, this is what we found at a high level, and then give specific observation, finding, and level of risk. At least these three things are required. In addition, there might be a recommendation. In addition, there might be a management response. That depends whether you want it or not. As far as I'm concerned, I think they are optional, but you can give the conclusion. So, for example, I was auditing some organization, and I knew these people because when I started the audit, before starting the audit, the coordinator told me, "See, please do it carefully because this report has to go to regulators." And then I got an indication that if it is going to be a go to the regulator, whenever I give my audit report, they will first thing they will try to do is negotiate with me. Please reduce funding. Please don't give high risk. So naturally, I need to do something with that because I cannot compromise with my professionalism. I have to be very ethical with my profession, but at the same time, I cannot lose the client. So I did one trick. I started recording each and every finding. And the draft report, I gave about 38 findings to them. And he was kind of 38 findings, my goodness. So finally he came, "Sir, this is a problem. It has to go to regulator. Can you help us?" I said, "Okay, you want me to reduce some findings? Okay, let us do it." So what I've done actually, for each control activity, I have given one finding. So when he said reduce it, I just merged those observations together and gave one finding per control objective. So naturally, those 38 findings came down to 11 or 12, and he was quite happy. I didn't compromise with my professional ethics, and he was happy because he negotiated with auditors. So those things were to manage somewhere with the skills and understanding, and for which we need to before going to audit, we should be very careful and very observant, right? And recommendations, don't try to give any advice to organization because as E.M. Foster says, expert give some advice and none of them will be adopted. But the thing is that to have an expert and get his report, that's the matter. There the matter ends. So you are an auditor, you are going to give audit report, and many organizations are going to put that audit report. Okay, auditor is given. Let us see. Many times you will find when you go for the follow-up audit, many of earlier audit findings are not closed or they are just closed for the sake of tick mark compliance. So don't get angry with them. It is their way of life. That is how it is. Okay. And then let us look into these are some common mistakes we do. We don't do a lot of risk assessment. We try to put a lot of big scope in a charter. Then our planning is missing. Many times our planning go haywire. We don't get the right expert for doing it. Sometimes testing we don't get enough time for testing. So we say, okay, how many 2-3 findings are there? Okay, close the audit. Let us not do it. In system audit, at least we have to focus on all possible controls so that there should not be any issues associated. Maintain the work paper and discuss the report. Few things are important, right? And then let me end with a small funny story. Yeah, you might have seen this particular thing that is whenever there is a flight, when your flight is over, the pilot has to give a gripe sheet to technical team that if he found any problem during the flight, he has to explain those problems. And then the technical team will look at it and close it and give their comments, right? So this is one of the funny pilot gripe sheet. So funny in the sense that The pilot is giving some observation and technical people are giving another observation. And I'm trying to relate it with our audit experiences. So pilot is given finding test flight, okay, except auto land very rough. So on that particular flight, auto land was very rough. And the technical person says, oh, there is no auto land on this particular aircraft. I don't want any situation as an auditor, I don't want to face that. Your control is failed, sir, we don't have that control here. So we should not face that situation. So we have to be very careful. Autopilot in altitude hold mode produces 200 feet descent. Technical cannot reproduce the problem because you might observe something which is a unique thing or one-time thing, and if you try to give a finding on that, management will say, okay, we don't know this thing is happening, we never see, show it again, and you cannot show it because this can happen only in certain situation, right? So let us be careful about finding, giving findings. Okay, evidence of leak on right main landing gear. So you are given a finding that there is I got an evidence that there is a control failure, and it comes that, okay, evidence removed. Don't face that situation. Make sure that you have got evidence first and then you are giving the finding. Okay. Okay, another situation generally IS auditor faces is this. Pilot gives an friction loss causes throttle levers to steep. An observation. And the technical, oh, that is the purpose they are there. So you are saying that I observe there is a control fail. He said, and the management said, no, sir, this is the control, not the control failure. So don't fall into that situation. Many IS auditor does that mistake. So let us be open and understand. Now I like this finding as an auditor. I love this kind of finding. Suspected crack in windshield. You are right. All my findings, I want management to respond, yes, sir, you are right. And that should be our focus whenever I'm doing this, particularly system audit. And this is a poorest thing to face. Number 3, engine missing. Found after brief search. You say control is missing and they said, so control is there. Have you tested it? You missed it completely. So let us not do that. Okay. And the last one is of course joke. Don't worry. Mouse in cockpit, cat installed. So that's how the IT people look at it. You give them one funding, they said, okay, we got a solution to be installed. So this is, I just want to give in a short. Now, if you have any questions, we can take those questions either in chat or you can unmute.
I think she can unmute herself. She self-muted. Yeah.
Okay.
Now it's happening. Thanks.
Okay.
Sunil sir, thank you for such a wonderful session. We have a couple of questions for you.
Yeah, please.
One is that currently, data security is becoming significant, that people are working remotely. So what are the kind of risks and, things that we as auditors should be careful of?
Okay, we are doing a remote audit. So, or even not remote audit, remote working or work from home.
Correct.
Now, as an auditor, generally, I will keep on asking them question how the data going to the home computer of the users and back to the server, how it is protected. So ideally, there should be VPN connection or what we call a virtual private network connection, so that it will be through and through encrypted. Okay, that is the first thing. First requirement is that we should have a VPN connection.
Okay.
For which the user should access the organization's data only on VPN. That is a rule 1. Rule 2, the laptops provided, if they are provided by company, they should be configured as per the company policy. But many times what happens that, for example, I got my own laptop at home. So I will use my own laptop. Then I have to educate them how to configure securely that laptop and which websites they should not face on that laptop, so that they can secure the network. And the third thing, the home networks. Mostly what happens that at home network, many times people don't protect it. They make it secure network, but the password is generally very tricky because those service provider who they come and they configure their routers, and while configuring they give the password as 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 period. So make sure that all those home connections have got your own password, which is a strong one, so that anybody cannot see it. Best way, if you can disable the publishing of the system ID, that home computer ID. If you can, when you look, click on your network connections on your laptop or your mobile, you'll see number of connections available. So if you are hiding that, it will not appear to anybody else's device that your connection is available. So those basic things we need to tell people who are working from home, right? And now there
Okay.
are certain things come in that many organizations provide desktops or even these IT companies who have got an outsourced work with them. And they, because of this lockdown, they have to ask their people to work from home. So this, but interesting part is that those are most of them are bachelors, are coming from some other location to this place, and they are staying in a shared accommodation. And in that shared accommodation, not only they have got your competitor as their colleague. So a competitor employee and your company employee, they are sharing the same accommodation. If they're working from home, both can see each other's data. So that is a different level of data leakage that can happen. So there are many things actually associated, but at least basic things as an auditor, I will look into it, how they are securing themselves.
Okay. Right. So very good inputs on that part. Nowadays, many of us are working on automated processes like RPAs and bots. So any
Right.
tips for audits around those to us?
Okay. First thing, remember one thing: the technology is same, whether it is in RP or IoT or blockchain. The underlying fundamental technology is not changed. It is a fundamental technology is the same. There is a network, there is a hardware, there is a operating system, and there is application. So these four components of any automated systems are common. Now, what happens today is that because these four components are so integrated together that we think that this is something different. So, robotic process automation. In other words, what it is, we know the business process. What we are doing, we are already automated those activities. Only thing earlier, those automated activities were visible to us because we were executing some of the activities between. In robotic process automation, what we are doing is that every decision has been fed into the system, and system itself take a decision and selects the path. So naturally what happens, a manual intervention for taking a decision in a process is reduced, minimized or removed.
Hmm.
So whenever I'm doing an RP audit, first let me understand what is your business function, what are the business processes, what are the basic controls you need to have, and how you have implemented those controls in the RPA. Ask the question, that's all. Whether I understand technology or not, that is the next part. Let me first understand the whole system as a whole,
Hmm.
and then we'll go into the technology per se. Right. So whenever we talk about the technology, I always talk there is a service. Every organization is there to provide some product or service. To do that product and service, there are processes, and those processes are automated using technology. Right. Look at the blockchain or digital currency or Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin is based on the blockchain as a technology. Now, blockchain is the most secure technology, but still there are fraud happening in Bitcoin. Why? Because vulnerability is not in technology, vulnerabilities are in the processes and people. So
Hmm.
we need to focus on where are those vulnerability and what are the issues associated. Then automatically we can audit any system for that. You got my point? Right.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Sir, there are three questions which have come online. Maybe we can restrict it to three because we are reaching the 5:30 outer limit. There are three questions. Are first question is, in the example of saving on licenses among the employees, what should be the what should one insist on? So that was a question. Is maybe that is relating to SAP example which you are given.
Okay, let me give that answer. First thing, license is not an legal or regulatory compliance. License is a contractual compliance. First understand. So if I am purchasing one license of Microsoft, then I am entitled to use that particular license. But if I'm installing that particular license on 10 different machines, that means I'm violating the contractual arrangement with Microsoft and myself. So in this case, if a number of users are 10 and I got only one license, then I have to ensure that the contractual arrangements are not violated. That is the only thing I'm looking. I'm not looking at the licenses. Right. So in the example I give, as I said, he has purchased 600 licenses with a contract with SAP or understanding with the SAP that I want only 600 licenses and 3 users are going to use one license. And SAP don't have that issue. Then if SAP don't have issue as an auditor, why should I have issue? No, my concern there was not the license. My concern was how you are going to fix the accountability of action done by the user. Because one user ID is shared among 3. So who is actually responsible for doing activity? So if somebody one person has done a fraudulent transaction, other 2 are also punished. So that was my question to him, and for which he gave the answer that he is maintaining the shift schedule, and because of that he was able to pinpoint. So ultimately, what I'm looking in the license is that accountability of the action on the user. Right. So license is not an issue as long as contracts are fulfilled. Why should I worry? If it is not, I will give you funding.
Yeah. Okay. Sir, one more question is, in spite of high-tech technology and lot of IT controls, cyber attacks do take place. Why IT cannot provide solutions to restrict them?
Okay, thieves are always ahead of police. We have to keep that in mind because attack or incident is a way of life. Anything can happen. That doesn't mean that we can secure ourselves 100%. So if I want to secure myself, I have to close down. So the most secure is the business which is not working. That is not the way. We have to work. So we have to go out and we have to go out in open. We have to take risk. Whenever we take risk, there is going to happen something, right? And that is where the attackers come. So what I need to do here is I need to understand what is the threat and what is the motivation. If I can remove the motivation, threat will not act. And why threat acts? Because I'm vulnerable. So if I remove the vulnerability, there will not be any issue. And ultimately, remember, vulnerability in the system is not in technology. Vulnerability is in people, process, and technology. So attackers, when they attack you, they don't attack only technology. They attack people, they attack process, they attack technology. For example, you have heard the social engineering attacks. So people call you and tell you, okay, your card has been blocked. I'm calling from your bank and if you want to activate it, give me some number. What happens here? Who is attacking? He's not attacking system. He's attacking the person. He's trying to scare him out. That services will not be available and the scared person shares the information. Or they will come up with something kind of a lottery. You have won a lottery. If you want, we need your account details. So you feel that, okay, I'm going to get something. Your greed comes into the picture. So what they are doing, they are attacking people now. As technology is becoming more stronger, they are attacking people. 100% security is impossible. So we have to live with certain threat and certain risk. So we have to So IT is working on that, but 100% is not possible. Ultimately, if people are compromising, how you are going to control it? That's
And thank you, sir. And last question. There is one question around BRD. How to understand BRD of any system? I guess it's business relationship diagram.
is that so?
Yeah.
Okay. So understanding BRD is not very difficult. Go to any organization, ask them their organization chart first. So if once organization chart is received, you know the internal relationship, which department is doing what, right? And then that business has got a context. That business is operating in an environment. That environment is associated with other organizations. So I need to understand what is the relationship. Let me give a simple example. Uh, any organization today is focusing on outsourcing. Why? Because that is a sharing of risk. In other words, you have got an additional stakeholder who is working for you and you have got a relationship with them. Now we need to understand what is this relationship with this vendor. Okay, that is a business relationship. Now again, that if you want to go in a deep, there is a big day. I just published a white paper. Isaka has published white paper on supplier risk, chain risk, and that
Okay.
I had all these issues. So how to third party relationship is the one aspect in that supply chain relationship. You can look
Yeah.
into it. Understanding is that the context. Once you understand context, you can understand relationship.
Okay. Okay, sir. Thank you. And I will just unmute Anuja from our team, who will do a vote of thanks for you.
Sure. Thank you.
Anuja?
Yes, Nikhil, I'm here. Thank you so much, Bakshi sir. This was indeed a very very interesting session, and the way you made it sound so simple, and right from the beginning, where you actually helped us really, get ourselves really not to be intimidated by the jargons of the IS audit. So that I think really set the tone of the entire discussion and the flow of your presentation. So thank you so much for a wonderful session and also helping us to understand and quote your real life examples. You made it so relatable for all of us. Thank you so much, Bakshi sir. It was a pleasure to host you today. Thank you to
Thank
all
you.
the participants. Yes, sir. Thank you to all the participants, and we hope all of you are benefited by this session. Thank you, Mehnaz and team, for taking part of the technical side. Thank you, everyone, and stay tuned for more such sessions by IIA and Pune Audit Club. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.